Hey everybody, this is your Right Geek, honorary man king, and leader of the Awkward Cough Squad, and I am really hot right now because our air conditioner is broken, and I live in the South, sadly. But I am still going to bring to you another review of a back issue of Iron Man. This is Iron Man number 167, which came out in '83. Let's just get to it. So this issue is the end of the Chessman storyline, and basically what was going on in this storyline is that Obadiah Stane is trying to gradually wear Tony down and destroy him and his company by sending the chessmen, basically his compatriots in arms, to continually attack Tony so that he becomes exhausted and worn down. And so in this issue opens with Tony being so worn down that he's actually thinking about relapsing and drinking again. But fortunately, despite the great temptation that he struggles with, he realizes, no, that is a stupid thing to do, and he throws the bottle away, and he says, that's not a solution, that's only bottled agony. I'd like it to be something else. I'll be able to sleep without it. I'll force myself to sleep. But evidently, when he comes in the next day, he really hasn't slept because Miss Arbogast noticed that he's still really worn out, and you can see that he's just not in the mood to deal with her today. And he's told he has to go to Switzerland to try to stop Obadiah Stane from setting up this sort of cabal of businessmen across the world. And here's another one of his employees saying, man, you look really worn down. Maybe you need help. And he refuses help because that's Tony. He doesn't like to admit when he's struggling. This part's interesting right here. When he gets to Switzerland, you know, he thinks to himself, well, there's no real reason to put on the old armor, except that I feel better wearing it, less vulnerable. So this is a good example of Tony, again, using the armor as an escape. He's been struggling so much that he so far has stopped himself from drinking, so we turn to the other addiction, which is the armor itself. And he basically goes off on a little flight after he calls his girlfriend Indries. FYI, here's an example of Tony being really effing romantic. He basically sends her an entire room full of flowers, and calls her, I just called to say, I love you. I'll phone tonight, bye. And then he goes off on a flight because he just wants to get out into the fresh air. And he ends up mixing it up with some more of Stane's chessmen. So you have several pages of that battle that eventually ends with him landing in a snowdrift because, as he says here, as he's catching this cable car that is falling to Earth, he says, I did this a few months ago in New York. Wasn't much sweat then. But what I was wearing at the time was in much better shape, and frankly, so was I. So, he ends up losing this fight and ending up in a snowdrift, which is, which is great. It's another example of these old comics not making it easy for the hero to win. But eventually he's able to recover, and he defeats the chessmen in time to make it to this meeting with Obadiah Stane and all of these other businessmen. And they ask Tony what he thinks about this whole cabal idea. And this is good what Tony says here. What I have to say won't take long. I'm a practical man. Not much of a philosopher. Not much for abstract thought. But if I believe anything, it's the value of the individual. Individual men, individual nations. Obadiah Stane's scheme to form a secret association of us who operate across national borders denies that value. Its real purpose is to destroy the laws, the traditions, the very identities of the countries where we do business. That, gentlemen, is something we have no right to do. So it's this really great speech, but then it's revealed that Stane has basically hypnotized all of these men, so they're not prepared to listen to anything Tony says. And frustrated, Tony's walking down the street, and he's once again tempted to drink, but he again fights the temptation. Skip a few more pages for the copyright gods. Let's get to the real meat. He gets back home to meet up with Indres, and this right here is the part that when I first read this issue, I actually screamed, "You bitch!" at the top of my voice. Because, okay, here's just what happens. So he reaches out to her, he wants to hug her, and she says, "Please, I'd rather you didn't paw at me, I'm not in the mood. I doubt whether I'll ever be in the mood for any such thing with you." And Tony says, I thought you loved me." "Me? Love you? Do you not realize how impossible that is? Where is your wit, Tony? Your style, your taste? In your bank account, perhaps. Certainly no place else. What are you, Tony Stark? A glossy shell, a preening poser who hides his inadequacy behind a credit card sophistication, a petulant child with a minor talent for electronic tinkering and a quivering ego. And that is all. I was amused by you. I enjoyed taking gifts from you and watching you pant after me like a puppy dog. But love you? It is astonishing even you can be so stupid." Like I said, when I read this the first time, I did scream, "You bitch!" at the top of my voice. And sadly, this is the last straw. And Tony relapses, sadly. So this is the beginning of the storyline that ended with number 182, which I reviewed a few videos ago. Yeah, so this is another good back issue of Iron Man. Lots of good personal drama. Lots of angst on Tony's part. Let me know what you think of this issue in the comments below, and I will speak to you again on Monday.